Breaking news now. The United States has gotten involved in the conflict between Israel and Iran. President Trump says the U.S. military struck 3 sites in Iran, directly joining Israel's effort to decapitate the country's nuclear program.
Three nuclear sites, 1 coordinated strike, 0 warning. The US has just pulled off one of the most advanced long-range coordinated strikes in modern warfare. 3 nuclear sites in Iran, Fordo, Natanz and Isfahan, all hit between 22:40 and 23:05 GMT. I'm Phil Campion, former UKSF, and this is the tactical truth. No boots on the ground, no detection, no margin for error. Let's break down how they did it and why it might have been bait. Now let's take a look at what's being said by the old MSN, shall we?
At midnight Friday into Saturday morning, a large B-2 strike package comprised of bombers launched from the continental United States. As part of a plan to maintain tactical surprise, part of the package proceeded to the west and into the Pacific as a decoy, a deception effort known only to an extremely small number of planners and key leaders here in Washington and in Tampa.
Like the way they're thinking, like the way they think. I like a bit of a decoy, you know? I do like the way... He's got some gongs on and all, by the way.
The main strike package, comprised of 7 B-2 Spirit bombers, each with 2 crew members, proceeded quietly to the east with minimal communications. Throughout the 18-hour flight into the target area, the aircraft completed multiple in-flight refuelings. Once over land, the B-2s linked up with escort and support aircraft in a complex, tightly timed maneuver requiring exact synchronization across multiple platforms in a narrow piece of airspace, all done with minimal communication.
I mean, this would have taken some coordination. It really would have done. And we'll go into the facts and figures and all that sort of stuff later. But for now, you've got to be fairly impressed with this, haven't you? You've got to be looking at this going, you pulled a good one here.
Operation Midnight.
By the way, you know, we have sort of like operation this, operation that, operation the other. Don't we? Usually words that we don't even know what they mean, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Not the Americans. Midnight hammer. Why? Because it was at midnight and we're going to hammer the shit out of you. We love a bit of that, don't we? Midnight hammer.
Hammer by the B-2 Spirit is a masterclass in the art of war.
A masterclass in bombing raids, I would have said, not in the art of war so much. But you know, look, let's not big it up more than it is here. All right.
The U.S. sent 2 groups of B-2 Spirit in opposite directions. One is a decoy that flew toward U.S. outposts in the Indian Ocean, while the main strike package appeared to head east toward Iran. All of this to strike the heavily fortified Fordo nuclear enrichment bunker. This facility is buried deep beneath a thick layer of rock, with its main chamber located approximately 200 meters from the tunnel entrance. The surrounding terrain begins with a gentle slope but becomes steep about 160 meters from the ridge, offering strong natural protection from aerial attacks.
There you go. So when they decided to choose this site, a lot of forethought and a lot of planning and a lot of sort of like strategic thinking has gone into where they've put this site for sure.
Just before the B-2s reached their target, a U.S. nuclear submarine launched a dozen cruise missiles aimed at various nuclear sites in Isfahan.
This mission was not and has not been about regime change. The president authorized a precision operation to neutralize the threats to our national interests posed by the Iranian nuclear program and the collective self-defense of our troops and our ally Israel.
So there you go. You couldn't be much clearer than that, do you know what I mean? This is about stopping you from hitting us as opposed to toppling your leader. Which actually puts a little bit, a slightly different spin on things in a sort of like, how would you put it, political jargon way, do you know what I mean? But we won't go there now.
Thanks for your question. I think BDA is still pending, and it would be way too early for me to comment on what may or may not still be there.
Yeah, BDA, this is an important thing, hugely important. Now, That's where it's going to be a little bit ambiguous by what's shown by them, what's received by these, what satellite imagery they can get, how much damage is actually done. Have you actually achieved what you set out to do? Have you stopped them from creating a nuclear bomb, or have you just slowed them down? That's where this really, for me, becomes interesting then.
Thanks for the question.
Yeah.
General, you say that General Kurilla increased force protection in Iraq, Syria, and Gulf, and those areas. Were they given any advance warning the attacks were coming? And also, Mr. Secretary, when were congressional leaders notified? How long before the attacks took place?
Sir, to your first question, you know, the risk has clearly been rising over the last few weeks in the region. Based on that and not a particular awareness of this operation, we've made smart decisions to minimize the risk to U.S. forces in the region.
In other words, no, we didn't tell anyone it was coming. We've done it as stealthily as we can to minimize the risk.
No advance warning?
No, sir.
We're coming. Shut up. Where do they get these journos from?
In congressional...
They were notified after the planes were safely out. Well, we complied with the notification requirements of the War Powers Act.
After the attacks, they were notified?
They were immediately thereafter.
Close him down. Boring.
What would the next steps be here?
I think right now CENTCOM is focused on ensuring that our forces in the region are ready for any potential Iranian response. We're also prepared to defend our embassies and our U.S. citizens. That process goes on all the time regardless, but we're at a very heightened state now, and I'm sure they're taking every precaution they can to ensure that we'll be able to defend against whatever the Iranians choose to do. The other half of that equation is the Iranians needs to be very clear to them, and I think we've made it clear to them that if they choose to attack us, our response will be overwhelming, and we have that capability as well. So CENTCOM's working those two lines of effort, I'm very sure, this morning.
So we've just seen what the media is showing you, all right? Now here's what they're not saying, because there's always a twist with them, isn't there? This wasn't just a strike, it was a statement. The US launched Operation Midnight Hammer with 125 aircraft, 7 B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, cruise missiles from a submerged Ohio-class submarine, and decoy bombers flown into the Pacific to draw off the radar. The B-2s left Whitterman Air Force Base. They flew for 18 hours undetected and dropped 14 GBU 57A/B massive ordnance penetrators on Fordo, the most fortified underground facility in the whole of Iran's nuclear program. Here's some military facts for you to shove straight down your Gregory Pecs. The GBU 57 bunker buster weighs 13,600 kilograms, alright? That's 30,000 pounds. It has no engine and relies purely on gravity. Dropped from 12K, it builds enough kinetic energy to pierce 60 meters of concrete or 200 feet of earth, using satellite-guided fins for precise steering. Then a delayed fuse detonates, 2.4 tons of explosives right where it hurts. That's why Fordo, which is buried in the mountains right near a place called Qom, was never bombed before. No country, apart from the US, has the tech to hit it. And they claim they just did, with surgical accuracy. Natanz and the Isfahan were struck simultaneously. Cruise missiles hit hardened structures from multiple vectors. Fordo shows 6 fresh craters and collapsed tunnels. Satellite images confirm tunnel entrances were sealed. Whether the warheads were actually still inside, well, that's up for grabs, isn't it? Iran claims they were evacuated, but Tehran would say that, wouldn't they? Of course they would. Now Trump's gone public. He's calling the damage monumental and warning that many targets remain. He's even floated regime change. You don't say that by accident, do you? So, here's the kicker. The US sustained no significant damage from anything that Iran did, alright? However, Iran respond with missiles on Tel Aviv and hit even prison. But again, no strategic retaliation against US assets. The question is, why now? Was this about weapons? Or was it bait? We'll cover that question off in part 2 on Force TV+.